The doorbell echoed through my midtown apartment like a warning bell, catching me off guard while Kesha was away at a conference in Charlotte. I opened the door, and there stood Vivian, her smile as sharp as a blade, flanked by a notary clutching a leather briefcase. "Jamal, dear," she said, her voice dripping with forced warmth. "This is Mr. Brooks, the notary. May we come in?" She glided inside before I could answer, her heels clicking on the hardwood. "I'm grading papers," I stammered, heart pounding. Try to regain control. "This won't take long," Vivian replied, gesturing for Mr. Brooks to set down his briefcase on my coffee table. "It's about family security. The Harris family protects our assets in a trust. As Kesha's husband, your assets should join it, for tax benefits and legacy." My throat tightened. "What assets?" I asked, voice steady despite the panic. Vivian's smile tightened, eyes glinting. "We know about your grandfather's properties. 2 apartments and a ranch, right? Quite a portfolio for a clerk." My secret, guarded even from Kesha, was laid bare. How had I walked into this trap? I am Jamal, a high school math teacher who never imagined wealth would complicate my life. When I married Kesha, I inherited 2 upscale apartments and a sprawling ranch from my grandfather Amos, a secret I buried deep to protect it. Born in 1937 in Kingston, Jamaica, Amos was a force of nature, tough, wise, and unyielding. After losing his wife in 1964, he left Jamaica for Atlanta, defying whispers that he'd never remarry or thrive. He took a clerk job at a midtown real estate office, his sharp mind catching every detail. "Never let anyone hold your purse strings, Jamal," he'd say over Sunday soul food dinners, the aroma of collard greens, cornbread, and jerk chicken filling his modest dining room. Those lessons, shared over laughter and clinking plates, shaped me more than I realized in the 1970s. When Atlanta's property market hit a slump, Amos saw opportunity where others saw risk. With savings scraped together from years of disciplined work, he bought his first apartment in Buckhead, a bold move for a black immigrant in a segregated city. Over the decades, he acquired another in Midtown and a 50-acre ranch in rural Douglas County. Each purchase a testament to his foresight. By the time I was navigating my way through Morehouse College, juggling textbooks and dreams of teaching, Amos owned these properties outright. He never flaunted his wealth, living simply in his Midtown apartment, his pride tucked into quiet smiles as he watched Atlanta's skyline grow. When Amos was diagnosed with lung cancer in 2022, I left my small rental to move into his Midtown apartment to care for him. Those months were heavy, watching his strength fade, yet his spirit remained fierce. We'd sit on his balcony, the Atlanta skyline glittering under the dusk, and he'd share stories of Jamaica, of hustling in a new country, of building something lasting. "I built something for you, Jamal," he said one evening, his voice raspy but firm. "Keep it safe." I thought he meant his recipe book or a small savings account. When he passed in 2023, his attorney, Mr. Daniels, called me to his office. Over polished mahogany, he revealed the truth. 2 apartments and a ranch, worth over $2.5 million. The Buckhead apartment, valued at $900,000, brought in $5,000 monthly from tenants. The Midtown apartment, worth $700,000, was now my home. The Douglas County ranch, valued at $1 million, was leased to a farmer for $2,000 a month. The news hit like a tidal wave. Overnight, I was a landlord, managing properties I hadn't known existed. The rental income covered taxes, maintenance, and left a surplus that dwarfed my teacher's salary. I settled into the Midtown apartment, its walls echoing Amos's presence, his old jazz records, the worn armchair where he'd read. But I told no one, not even Kesha. Past relationships had left scars. An ex who used my credit card without asking, claiming we were a team, another who pressured me to fund her startup after learning I had a steady job. Amos's voice rang in my ears. "Keep it safe," and I locked the secret away, vowing to protect his legacy. I met Kesha 6 months after Amos's passing, my grief still a heavy shadow. She was a marketing manager at her family's event planning business, her energy like a burst of sunlight, vibrant, ambitious, with a laugh that could light up a room. We bonded over late-night jazz at a club on Peachtree Street, sharing plates of fried catfish and swapping stories of our Jamaican roots. Our romance moved fast. Within 3 months, we were dreaming of a shared future, sketching plans over coffee at a little 5 Points cafe. I told her I'd inherited Amos's Midtown apartment, where I lived, but the rest, the Buckhead apartment, the ranch, stayed locked in my chest. It wasn't deceit. I needed to know I could trust her completely before opening that door. Kesha's family was a force in Atlanta's black elite. Her father, Roland, ran a thriving event planning firm, orchestrating galas for the city's movers and shakers. Her mother, Vivian, hailed from a prominent Decatur family, her poise masking a calculating mind. They invited me to their Stone Mountain mansion, a sprawling estate with marble floors and chandeliers. Over a dinner of peach cobbler and roasted chicken, Vivian's warmth felt rehearsed. "Teaching's noble, Jamal," she said, her fork poised midair. "But the salary's modest, isn't it? How do you plan to provide for Kesha?" Her questions, cloaked in politeness, probed for weaknesses. I smiled, deflecting, but felt the weight of her scrutiny. "I manage," I said, keeping my tone light. "I live in Amos's apartment in Midtown, low overhead." Vivian's eyes narrowed slightly, like a hawk's spotting movement. "Did he leave you anything else? Investments, perhaps?" "Just memories," I replied, my stomach tightening. Her questions didn't stop, about my parents in Augusta, my savings, my long-term plans. Each felt like a chess move, testing my defenses. I answered carefully, offering just enough to seem open while hiding the truth. Roland, quiet at the head of the table, watched with a weary expression, as if he'd seen this game before. I left their mansion feeling like I'd dodged a trap, but uneasy about what Vivian might uncover point one warm evening at Piedmont Park. Kesha pulled me under a canopy of oaks and proposed, offering a silver ring etched with Dinkra symbols for love and unity. "Let's build a life together, Jamal," she said, her eyes shining with hope. My heart swelled, and I said yes, slipping the ring on with trembling hands. Back in the Midtown apartment that night, we lay on the couch, the city's lights twinkling outside. I almost told her about the inheritance. The words were on my tongue, but Amos's voice whispered, "Keep it safe, Jamal." Past betrayals flashed in my mind, and I held back, choosing caution over vulnerability, praying it wouldn't cost me her trust. Wedding planning became a battleground for Vivian's control. She insisted on a lavish ceremony at the Fox Theater, its gilded arches and red velvet seats a statement of Harris family prestige. My suggestion of a simpler event at Centennial Olympic Park, with string lights and a steel drum band, was dismissed with a wave. "The Harris family marries with class," Vivian declared, her tone final. "We'll cover the costs. It's tradition." I agreed, but suspicion gnawed at me. Their generosity felt like a leash. The wedding was stunning. Kesha glowed, the crowd cheered, but Vivian's critique stung. She frowned at my Kent suit, muttered about the jazz band's unorthodox vibe, and questioned every choice that bore my mark that we settled into the Midtown apartment, its familiar walls now home to our new life. Kesha sold her Decatur condo, pouring the proceeds into renovating our kitchen. Quartz counters, oak cabinets, a sleek island where we cooked jerk chicken and sipped sorrel. During the chaos of construction, she'd lean against the half-finished counters, dreaming aloud. "This place is great, Jamal, but imagine a bigger home for kids, maybe Brookhaven with a yard." Her vision was bright, but it carried echoes of her parents' ambitions, a reminder of the world she'd grown up in. I nodded, smiling, but kept my thoughts guarded, the weight of my secret growing heavier. "This apartment's special," I said one evening, running my hand along the balcony railing Amos loved. "It's his legacy." Kesha touched my arm, her warmth grounding me. "I get it, Jamal, but we could aim higher like my parents did." Her words, innocent yet loaded, mirrored Vivian's expectations, a life of grandeur, of status. I felt the divide between us, not in love but in perspective. My silence about the inheritance wasn't just caution now. It was a shield against a family that measured worth in dollars and deals. I changed the subject, but the tension lingered like an uninvited guest. We agreed to keep separate finances, with a joint account for our household expenses. A practical choice, I thought. Kesha shrugged it off, saying her parents did the same. Vivian's got her family money. Roland's out the business, she said, stirring a pot of callaloo. But her casual tone didn't ease my doubts. I'd seen Roland's tired eyes at dinner. The way Vivian's questions carried an edge of control. Were their finances truly separate, or was it a facade? I logged into our joint account late at night, checking balances, ensuring my secret remained mine, wondering if Kesha sensed a wall I'd built between us. After our honeymoon in Savannah, where we wandered cobblestone streets and savored low-country shrimp, Vivian's visits became a weekly ritual. Every Sunday at 2 p.m., she arrived at our midtown apartment with gifts, a hand-woven sweetgrass basket, custom drapes, each paired with critique. "Your decor so plain, Jamal," she'd say, adjusting a vase. These drapes had sophistication. Her real agenda surfaced in pointed questions. "Teaching's fulfilling, but have you considered joining our firm? More stability for kids." Her words, wrapped in concern, felt like bait. I smiled, deflected, but each visit tightened the knot in my stomach, her curiosity about my finances growing sharper. One evening, Kesha opened up after a tense visit from Vivian. Over glasses of rum punch, she shared how Vivian's family had bankrolled Roland's first event venue, a debt she never let him forget. "Vivian's protective of our assets," Kesha said, her voice low. "She made my brother Malcolm sign a prenup to keep his wife's bakery separate." The story hit hard. Malcolm's wife, a fiery entrepreneur, had fought to protect her business from Vivian's grip. It was a warning. Vivian saw marriage as a financial merger, a way to expand the Harris empire. My caution, once a whisper, became a roar, solidifying my resolve to keep Amos's legacy hidden. Family dinner in Stone Mountain, the air thick with the scent of oxtail and rice. Talk turned to real estate. I mentioned Atlanta's rising property values, my landlord experience slipping out in a moment of ease. Vivian's eyes locked onto me, sharp as a blade. "You know a lot about property for a teacher. Jamal, is your grandfather's apartment a condo?" "Just an apartment," I corrected, cursing my lapse. "I deal with the building's management." "Interesting," she said, her tone heavy with doubt. "Condos in Midtown can be worth a fortune." I steered the conversation to safer ground, but her questions grew relentless, probing Amos's finances, my other assets, each word a step closer to my secret. Vivian's persistence unnerved me. I began noticing small things, her lingering glances at my mail, her casual questions about my parents' modest home in Augusta. At one dinner, she brought up a friend who'd helped a young couple manage inherited property, her tone implying I needed similar guidance. Roland, usually silent, shifted uncomfortably, his eyes avoiding mine. I felt like prey in a carefully laid trap, Vivian's charm masking a calculated hunt for control. Kesha, oblivious to the undercurrent, chatted about her work, but I couldn't shake the feeling that Vivian was closing in, her instinct sharper than I'd feared. "You investigated me?" I asked, forcing calm as Vivian and Mr. Brooks sat across from me in my midtown apartment, the notary's briefcase open like a threat. "Standard family due diligence," Vivian said, waving a hand as if it were nothing. "These documents transfer your properties into our trust. You'll still benefit, but our financial team will optimize returns." Mr. Brooks slid a stack of papers toward me, his expression blank. I scanned them. The trust would hand control to Vivian and Roland, stripping me of Amos's legacy. Did Kesha know about this? I demanded, my voice sharp. "She trusts us with family matters," Vivian said coolly. "She's focused on the business." My phone rang. Kesha. I put it on speaker, desperate for an anchor. "Hey, you okay?" Vivian said she was dropping off a photo album. Your mother's here with notary, I said, my voice steady but cold. They want me to sign over my inheritance to your family trust. What inheritance? Kesha's voice broke, confusion raw. Vivian leaned forward, unfazed. I'm protecting our legacy, Kesha. Jamal inherited 2 apartments and a ranch. They need proper management. 2 apartments and a ranch? Kesha repeated, her shock palpable through the phone. Jamal, what's going on? The room felt like it was closing in, my secret unraveling in the worst possible way. I took a deep breath. Amos's words grounding me. Amos left me 2 apartments and a ranch, I said. They're in a trust, premarital assets, to keep them safe. You didn't tell me, Kesha said, her voice thick with hurt. We'll talk later, I said, trying to keep her calm. Did you know about this, Kesha? No, she snapped, her anger turning to Vivian. Mother, why didn't you tell me? It's family business, Vivian said, her tone sharp. I'm coming home, Kesha said, the line going dead. The silence that followed was heavy, Vivian's composure fraying as she realized her plan was crumbling. Vivian stood, her mask slipping. You're making a mistake, Jamal. The Harris family values financial unity. Refusing could strain your marriage. Her words were a veiled threat, but I held my ground. Threatening my marriage won't work, I said, my voice like steel. I'm stating facts, she shot back, signaling Mr. Brooks to pack up. Think it over. He can return tomorrow. As they left, I stood in the doorway, watching them descend the elevator, my mind racing. Kesha's hurt echoed in my ears, but so did Amos's warning. I had to protect what he'd built, no matter the cost. After Vivian and Mr. Brooks left, I paced the apartment, the weight of the confrontation sinking in. I called Mr. Daniels, my voice urgent. I need Amos's inheritance locked down now. He assured me the trust was ironclad but added biometric verification to prevent any changes without my direct approval. I contacted my property manager next, a no-nonsense woman who'd worked with Amos for years. We updated security protocols, requiring in-person approval for any transactions. As I hung up, the Midtown apartment felt like a fortress, Amos's legacy safe within its walls, but the cost of my secrecy loomed large. Kesha returned that evening, her face etched with exhaustion and betrayal. We sat on the balcony, the cities on below us, and she spoke first. Why didn't you tell me, Jamal? Her voice was soft but raw. I was cautious, I admitted, staring at the skyline. Meeting your family, Vivian's questions, the way money controls them. I needed to protect Amos's legacy. She sighed, her shoulders slumping. Vivian proved you right. She tried the same with Malcolm's wife, pressuring her to sign over her bakery. They moved to Miami to escape her. The parallel stung, but it validated my silence. Even as it strained our bond, we talked into the early hours, the moonlight casting shadows across the apartment. Kesha's hurt ran deep. She felt excluded, sidelined in our marriage. Vivian's wrong, she said, tears brimming. But I wish you'd trusted me. I took her hand, my own guilt heavy. I do now, I said, pulling out the property documents from a locked drawer. I walked her through the details, the apartments, the ranch, the income, laying Amos's legacy bare. Let's build our future as partners, I said, hoping to mend what my secrecy had fractured. She nodded, a tentative step toward healing. The next morning, we sat at the kitchen island, coffee steaming between us, and mapped out a plan. Kesha suggested we meet with a financial advisor, not Vivian's, but an independent one, to ensure the properties were managed wisely. I agreed, relieved by her pragmatism. We also discussed boundaries with her family, particularly Vivian's overreach. She's always controlled the narrative, Kesha said, her voice firm, but not with us. I felt a shift. Our marriage, once teetering, was finding its footing. Amos's legacy wasn't just property. It was a lesson in standing firm, and I was ready to honor it with Kesha by my side. We invited Vivian to our apartment the next day. Sitting united on the couch, the Atlanta skyline framing us through the window. "My inheritance stays in my trust," I said, my voice steady. "Amos insured is protected." Vivian bristled, her fingers tightening around her purse. "You're dividing our family, Jamal," she said, her tone icy. Kesha squeezed my hand, her presence a quiet strength. We weren't just confronting Vivian. We were reclaiming our autonomy, setting a line she couldn't cross. The air was thick with tension, but I felt Amos's resolve in me, unyielding. "No," Kesha said, her voice cutting through the silence. "You're dividing us, Mother. Investigating Jamal, bringing a notary. That's not family." Vivian's composure cracked, her eyes flashing with something like shame. "I was protecting our legacy," she insisted. "The business is struggling. Roland's bad investments. We need collateral for a loan." Kesha's jaw tightened. Investments? Or Roland's gambling again? The question hung heavy, exposing a truth Vivian had buried. Roland's losses, Kesha later told me, had been a family secret, whispered about but never confronted, a wound festering beneath their polished exterior. Vivian's defenses crumbled as she admitted Roland had lost $600,000 on risky ventures, threatening the family business. My properties, she confessed, were seen as a lifeline to secure a loan. Why not ask for help? I said, frustration rising. "Harises don't beg," she snapped, pride flaring. "Manipulation isn't the answer," Kesha countered, her voice steady. "We proposed a deal. I'd use the Bucket apartment as collateral, but Roland had to join a gambling recovery program, and the business needed professional management." Vivian's eyes welled up, her pride battling her desperation. After a long pause, she nodded, agreeing to our terms as Vivian left. Her step slower than usual, I felt a mix of relief and unease. Kesha and I had stood our ground, but the confrontation revealed the fault lines in her family. Over dinner that night, Kesha shared more, how Vivian's control had pushed Malcolm and his wife to Miami, how Roland's gambling had strained their marriage for years. "I don't want that for us," she said, her eyes searching mine. I promised transparency moving forward, vowing to share decisions about the properties. Amos's legacy had sparked this storm, but also gave us the strength to face it together. Over the next few months, our plan took root. Roland entered a gambling recovery program, his first sessions tense but promising. The family business, under new professional management, began to stabilize, booking events that restored its reputation. Kesha left the firm, her decision a quiet rebellion against Vivian's influence. She joined a tech startup in Atlanta, diving into a world of coding boot camps and pitch meetings. Her energy infectious. I continued teaching, finding joy in my students' breakthroughs, while managing the properties with Kesha's input. We bought a fixer-upper in Grant Park, spending weekends painting walls and sanding floors, building a home that was ours, not dictated by our family's expectations. Vivian, humbled by the confrontation, gifted us a family cabin in Blue Ridge, outside the Harris Trust, as a peace offering. At a quiet dinner in Stone Mountain, she apologized, her voice softer than I'd ever heard. "I was raised to see money as control," she admitted, her hands clasped tightly. "I want to change for you, for our future." Kesha reached across the table, squeezing her mother's hand, a gesture of forgiveness but not surrender. The cabin became our retreat, a place to escape Atlanta's noise and reconnect. Its rustic charm a reminder of simpler dreams on our second anniversary. We drove to the Blue Ridge cabin, the mountain air crisp and freeing. Over a candlelit dinner, Kesha shared news that stopped my heart. "I'm pregnant, Jamal." Joy overwhelmed me, and we laughed, cried, and planned a trust for our child, inspired by Amos's foresight. We also launched the Amos Johnson Foundation, a nonprofit teaching financial literacy to Black youth in Atlanta. At our first workshop, watching teens learn about budgeting and investments, I felt Amos's spirit smiling down, his legacy extending beyond property to empower a new generation. That Amos's properties were more than wealth. They were a lesson in resilience, independence, and partnership. My secrecy, born of caution, had tested our marriage but ultimately strengthened it. Kesha and I learned to set boundaries, confront toxic patterns, and build a life rooted in trust. As we stood on the cabin porch, watching the sunset paint the mountains gold, I knew we'd honored Amos's legacy, not just in protecting his properties, but in creating a family grounded in love, ready to face whatever came next.